Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to Paranormal Karen. It is April 9th, and I am so excited about my guest because you guys know we have so many healers on. I have been looking for a shaman for so long. I have so many clients that ask about a shaman. They want to learn to be a shaman. Well, I found Sarah Seidelman. So excited. Looked at her website. I don't even know where to jump in. Sarah, thank you for coming on the podcast.
Super excited to be here, Karen. Thanks for having me.
So, and the website is called followyourfeelgood.com, folks. It'll be in the show notes. So how does one, this is one of the things, I've been in the metaphysical field forever. How does one become a shaman or find that calling? How did you start out?
Well, so back in about 10 to 12 years ago, I was practicing medicine. So I was a board certified pathologist, which is a physician that kind of specializes in the diagnosis of disease. We're the doctors that sit in the laboratory and look at the microscope at all the tissues that have been biopsied. So if you had a brain biopsy or a skin biopsy or your blood drawn and they wanted us, their doctors wanted us to look at it, we're the ones who sort of determine what the disease process is, or if there's no disease, if things are benign and, there's nothing going on.
Good news.
Yeah, good news. There's some of that too. And I'd been in the practice of medicine for 20 years and just started feeling this kind of disconnect at work, just feeling less engaged with it. And I started getting, basically I was a paid professional disease hunter. And I really started getting curious about what makes people well, which was a little disturbing because I'm like, well, I can't really focus on that, because that's not what I'm getting paid to do. And after a lot of soul searching, I eventually took a sabbatical just to kind of figure out what was going on with me, and that summer I started spending a lot of time in nature. And, before that, medicine is a pretty demanding career, had 4 little kids. My husband's also a physician. So I've basically not seen the light of day for 12 years, I don't know, long time.
And might I say, how, if only the health industry or our medical industry asked the question, what makes people well? It's kind of like, I feel like you felt guilty even asking that question. And I was like, oh my God, that's like a revelation.
I know. It's true, but traditional medicine is very much set up. I mean, it was, after I left, I realized, wow, when you go to a doctor, because then months after that sabbatical, I went to my own doctor and she, spent 20 minutes asking me, have you lost weight? Do you have headaches? Are your limbs sore? All of these questions. And what they are is they're questions hunting for disease. We don't ask, are you having
and there was my text. And hold on. And what's interesting about when they ask you all those questions, like, do you have a headache? Did you lose weight? You start to go, well, now that you ask, I do have a headache. And now, you know what I mean? Like,
totally. Like the nature of the question can, I think, maybe make us look for disease rather than looking for what's right. I mean, of course we have to, there's a reason behind all that, but that summer when I took the sabbatical, I started spending more time in nature and I just started feeling amazing, like better than I had felt in years. I would say almost bordering on mania, because it was like, I remember standing at the end of my driveway and just saying to my neighbor, oh my gosh, like the weather is so amazing. Like I was kind of freaking out because I think I just had been so denied nature and the beauty of it all. It was kind of overwhelming me and I was just feeling a lot of gratitude. And anyway, that same summer, I kind of was feeling extremely confused, as one does when somebody's, I thought I was going to do medicine until I was 70, it was like, this is my jam. This is the plan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when the plan gets disrupted and you realize you can't do that, it's terrifying because you're sort of like, well, how are we going to pay for the kids' college? I mean, if this isn't going to work for me, what's going to happen?
Right.
And so I was confused. stumbled into this ancient idea that the wild animals crossing our path have messages for us, which is quite a shamanic idea, kind of an ancient idea. And I was like, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard, like that makes no sense. How could an animal have anything to do with, logically my life? In my own egomaniacal way, right? But I was so kind of desperate. I thought, well, hell, I'll just try it,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just started noticing, who was crossing my path. And then I started to be like, wow, there's something to this. And sort of one thing led to another. And I'll share one of the first beasties that I like to call them beasties because it kind of covers everything from like a little dragonfly all the way up to
deer. Yeah.
Bears, lions, tigers, or also more mythical beasties like Pegasus or, the Phoenix or, things like that.
I love it.
Yeah. So the first beastie to really capture my attention was this walrus, and it was a taxidermied walrus that was at this little shop in our downtown, kind of a, little store. And I remember being like, okay, this is like really, I'm really enamored of this giant walrus, and had huge, like 3-foot long tusks. I mean, it was just completely arresting. I was like, okay, Mr. Walrus, hit me. I'm ready for your message, And I sort of stood there loitering in this gift shop thinking, something was going to happen. And really nothing did. I went back to visit it again because I was like, come on, I want to know what you're trying to tell me. Eventually what I did is I started watching some YouTubes about walruses. And what I noticed about them is like, the first one that popped up was like, 80 giant walruses on a beach just lounging. And they were like, they're just completely surrendered. Like they're not trying to be something else. They're just being walruses. And they were certainly not hepped up on any kind of anxiety. Like, oh my God, where are the clams going to come from? They're going to run out. And I was just like, wow, okay. And then I also learned that they're apex predators, meaning they have little to no competition in the natural world, besides man, which, we leave him out of the equation really, because of course man wrecks everything. But
yes, exactly.
They might tangle with a polar bear very occasionally, but I put these two things together. This idea that like, maybe if I could manage to utterly be myself and be comfortable in my own skin, that I too would have no competition. So should I choose some new vocation, like being a writer or being a coach, or, I had some ideas I was sort of banding about at that point.
Oh my God. I'm already like in awe of just that statement. I was thinking no natural enemies like Tom Hanks, no natural, that is okay. Go ahead. That just to me is like an amazing way to live. Okay. Keep going.
Yeah. And I mean, I think it's true. That's a truism for all of us, right? But it had never hit me. And then that idea kind of really helped me. It kind of just made me feel like, okay, maybe there's a chance. It's like a door cracked open and some light came in and I felt better. So I just started to continue to notice, okay, what beasties are crossing my path and what might be their message. If I get real curious, what might they be trying to tell me? Eventually I learned this idea that, people have a particular wild animal that is affiliated with them, and the spirit of that animal, like sort of guards them, gives them power. And I was like, whoa, okay, this is really helping me, but I think I need to figure out who that is. Who is what I've come to start calling my core beastie, like an animal that, when you emulate and sort of metaphorically live your life in the way they live theirs, you start to align with all your personal power, and you start to, you can get guidance, you can get inspiration, you start to believe in yourself as you cultivate this relationship. So anyway, I ended up taking a shamanic journey, which was, a shamanic journey is essentially a drum beating that in this particular drum beat pattern, it causes a person to go into a theta brainwave state, which is sort of the same state that we go into in REM or dream sleep.
Or a meditation when you're really deep.
Yes. If you're really good, like these Tibetan, people have been hanging out in the monasteries or up in a mountain for 20 years. So it's a very, like a deep meditation. And I did that. And during that experience, I encountered this mother bear. And again, I was full of doubt and full of like, am I making this up? Like, what the heck is going on? But she like sat me down and rubbed my back. And she was just like, Sarah, we know you're so upset, but like, where you're going, it's not that far away. She sort of pointed away to this place that was down a hill from where we were sitting. And she said, all you need to do is enjoy the journey, which sounds like some kind of a Hallmark card platitude.
No, it's so easy.
Right now,
what are you doing? Enjoy it.
I know. But at the time, it's just like, it was amazing. Like, I felt this love from her that I really hadn't felt from anybody, on this earth anyway. And I've had very loving parents and a wonderful childhood. So it's not like I haven't experienced love, but it was so wonderful. Like, I had tears and just felt so like understood for a moment. Wow. And when I came back from it, of course, my logical brain was like, what are you doing? You're a doctor. Like, you just need to go back to work. You just need to simmer down. This is crazy. But then another part of me was like, but this feels so good. What, there's something here. And eventually I just decided there was no way to prove it scientifically what was happening to me. But I felt like each time I went to revisit this mother bear, and each time I spent time in nature and noticed the beasties that were, that there was all this help, like this supernatural help around me all the time.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I have I'm writing down a whole bunch of questions as we go. So I didn't want you to think you're like, well, worst interview ever, didn't ask one thing. I have like 100 questions on my piece of paper right now. The first being, so that was part of what you do. You help people find their animal, right?
Yeah. A lot of people, if somebody comes to me and says, my whole life is falling apart and I don't know what's, going on, and I'm desperate for like sacred guidance. Like, one of the first things I'll suggest is I would invite you to connect with an animal in spirit form. So I'll either drum for them or send them, I have a guided meditation, which if for your listeners, you can just get that for free by jumping on my list at Follow Your Feel Good. You'll get access to that. And because, again, once we connect with this animal, and this isn't for everybody, but if this is something that's sounding appealing to you, it might just be like the perfect medicine for you.
And I'm going to throw this in, or let's get to it right away. You have books and apps, and one app is called What the Walrus Knows. Tell me about that real quick. That looks great.
Yeah. Well, so as I was like discovering the power and the amazing, like, I started sharing this with friends, and a lot of my friends are like lawyers and doctors and, smart people, and I was kind of worried about it. I was like, God, are they going to just think I'm a flake and like write me off for the rest of my life? And then they were all just like, whoa, not every single one of them, but many of them just found so much power in it. I started to share it with other people. And so eventually I decided I'm going to write a book about this just to teach people how to do it, and also to inspire people, because, we all go through periods of life that are scary, and change can be tough to navigate. But with the beasties by our side, it helps. So the app has sort of an encyclopedic list of, almost any beastie you could imagine seeing. So you can look up like an aligning affirmation or set of them for each animal that you run into. So
wow.
If you ran into an antelope, for example, and you're having trouble with your mother-in-law, you can look through the list of aligning affirmations and see, okay, is there anything here that resonates? And you can also take a journey on that app as well to discover your core beastie.
And if we see an animal in a dream, is that the same thing?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. They can come to us in our dreams. They can come to us in Facebook. They can come to us in, somebody gives you a gift. They give you a coffee mug with squirrels on it. I mean, they have an infinite number of ways. My first one came through taxidermy. It's like, so no matter where, you don't have to live, you can be in the middle of LA or New York, and you don't necessarily. It's just whatever's popping in. And if you happen, it's especially powerful. You're like, wow, I've seen like 3 moose. There was one on Facebook. I just saw a moose bumper sticker. And then somebody mentioned on the radio, I have moose in my backyard. It's like, okay, I'm paying attention.
Yes. And what's really interesting, because maybe, I mean, I think I think the world is, first of all, we're in this move into Aquarius, and everyone, and also it's who you surround yourself with. So I'm full of people that are, getting rid of their trauma and making these changes. And I have to say, because, I meditate every day and I do my tarot. So I'm there. You're speaking my language. But it was so funny because yesterday, or it was the other day, I was meditating and someone said, throw away all your stuff. And I was like, what? Who? And then I looked around my apartment and I was like, I didn't buy anything in my apartment. It was a neighbor said, do you want this couch? Do you want that? I was like, not only don't I have what I choose in my apartment, I have everyone else's energy. And I was like, I'm going to start again. But that when you hear that voice initially, like you were saying, you go, that who's throwing away what? You know what I mean? It's like you have trouble believing it. And also, I bet your friends found you as such a credible source.
Yeah, what's been really interesting is like being a physician. I think that's really helped this message as it's coming through me to go to more people, because people who are skeptical are like, okay, well, this lady, at least she did go through this whole process and become a board certified physician. She's saying there's something to this. So maybe there is, I think it at least makes people stop and think.
Right. Because I'm a comedian and I think people always go, does she really read tarot, or is she going to make fun of me for an hour? One of those.
Yeah. And I think it's so great. Like that idea of having a comedian who's a tarot card reader. It's like, to me, that is the best of all the worlds. I want to go to that person. I want to go get a reading from you, because it's like the combination of like, I just love that. I think it's wonderful.
Well, thank you. And might I take a moment to promote my CD where I read tarot cards from the stage and be funny, Psychic Stand-Up Valentine's Edition. You can get on my website for $5. I have
Fabulous.
Yes, I'm actually going to take a break a minute early. We'll go a minute long in the other segment, because I have this question that I think everyone is waiting to hear your answer on, which is, and this is the cliffhanger, folks, your husband. I know so many people that are waking up and the partner is not quite on board. So we will approach that question in 1 second. Hang on, folks. Folks, if you want some laughs, you can check out my CD, Psychic Stand-Up Valentine's Edition. You can get it on my website for $5. It's me reading tarot for a comedy crowd. It's funny and interesting and different. And if you don't have any money, go find it on YouTube and go watch it for free. I just want you all to laugh. Also, if you're looking to sharpen your intuition or some really great classes, I'm back in touch with my friend Derek at mysticalwares.net. He is putting up some free classes for the Mystical Wares website. So we got something for everybody. We got a comedy CD and we got all kinds of classes. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of the podcast. All right, Sarah, the tough one. You're waking up and no one else is. How do you handle that in your house?
Yeah. So, well, the good news is we weren't exactly on the exact same path, but I would say probably 10 years prior to me going through this big shift, my husband and I watched that crazy movie, The Secret. Everybody in the free world has seen it. And we were both like, we watched it and we're just like, whoa, that's weird. I mean, like, is that real? I mean, we were just kind of like, it was so off base from anything we had been just striving, following every rule, both in medical school, just getting our butts kicked, just doing everything. So I remember at that point, it really made us think. We didn't really do anything with it. It was just kind of like, huh. And then 10 years passed. And I think, as in life, we're thinking things are going to keep getting better if we just keep working harder and working smarter.
Yes.
And
oh my God. Oh.
And it's kind of a delusion, or at least it was in our case. We just kind of eventually went up against the wall. Like, this was not the life we wanted, never seeing each other, never seeing our kids, like just working all the time. And so he was really quite supportive. What happened when I, in order to take the sabbatical, before we did that, we ended up having to downsize our house. These were steps that happened before the sabbatical just to make it even financially possible to take time off. And that was a big change. And that impacted all our kids. I remember our teenage kids, like we lived in this quite fancy, bigger house. And my 13-year-old, our teacher was like pretty upset because, his identity was tied up in like having a pool table and having this cool house where he could have like a sleepover with 15 kids, in the basement. Wow. And so not only like I always just tell people when you're starting to shift your identity and your world is falling apart, it basically can't help but trigger everybody else you love around you.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think our kids for years, they talked about it. Oh, Mom, you had to quit your job. And then we had to move from the nice house into the other house, And they're all grown. They're grown up now. And I think are grown enough to realize like how happy I am and how much that's what really matters. But,
and what you taught them, which is that happiness matters. That's when, when I see a client that is either so hard on their career, themselves, or their body, I'm like, you are teaching your kids this. I don't even have kids. I don't even like kids. But I think I got this point right. You are an example. So you taught your kids it's okay to change lanes when you're not happy.
Absolutely. And that's what I think that was finally, I felt so guilty about thinking about leaving medicine, and most people, most of my clients that come and are considering a massive career change or, leaving their partner or whatever the big catalytic change that they're contemplating, like most of us feel guilty that we're being selfish by going after what we want. But that's where the one quote that really saved me in this was when Marianne Williams said, it's like when you do this, when you decide to basically follow your own dream, you unconsciously give others permission to do the same. So it's kind of like once you shine that light and you are that example, it's like it just your whole life and existence gives everybody else permission to go around and take care of whatever they need to take care of.
Yes, and as someone that's contemplating a facelift, it makes you look younger.
Oh man. And
okay.
But thankfully, my partner was supportive, and he's been sort of on a parallel spiritual path of finding what it's all about and doing his own work. So I'm really fortunate that way.
Okay, that's great. And I do love that. I always tell people, I think our relationships are like a tug of war. So if you're going to let go of the rope or pull harder, the other person is going to have to move. So that is good about the unconscious. So, and actually you do, I'm very focused on shamanic stuff because that's sort of my vibe right now. But you do so many things. You kind of do life coaching, you teach classes, all that stuff. And we're going to kind of hit on that in the third part. But so you're on this journey, you get it, you're like, I need these changes. And then did you actually go to see a shaman, or who sort of tipped the scales like, oh, this is the way I need to start?
Yeah. So after spending time with my mother bear, I'd say for about 3 months, I was just journeying and visiting her. I started accumulating all these questions like, what is this? What are we doing? And I had some unusual experiences that were starting to happen to me. And I was kind of getting a little freaked out. So I was like, I need to learn more about this. So I engaged with a teacher from a place called the Foundation for Shamanic Studies, which is located out of Northern California, but there are teachers all over the country. And took a class and started to learn more about shamanic practices and traditions all over the globe. So this was not an indigenous teacher. This was somebody teaching what's called core shamanism. And then I went eventually and got a healing from the person that taught that class. And eventually, and I found that so helpful. And then I eventually, did more training. And now I have, now that it's been 12 years since all that sort of stuff happened. And I've had many different, both indigenous teachers and non-indigenous teachers, and have just been continuing to learn. And I find shamanism, shamanic work is much like medicine. It's just this endless frontier of there, you could never stop learning. There's always more to learn. And quite amazing.
And okay, so and now one of the things that sort of fascinates me, I did hear someone talking about this on the radio, and it made no sense, and I'm a bad driver, so I turned it off. But I will ask you, explain the drumming, or I know, like just recently, I've been reading tarot professionally maybe 5, 6, 7 years. I don't know. I always did, but now I'm to this point where I sit down and I do 4 to 5 readings a day, Monday through Thursday. And
right.
And God bless the business that I have. Thank you, everyone. But I was never all of a sudden, I'm very in tune. You have to cleanse between. There's something in your apartment. You got to get it out. Like I was never as in tune. I don't know if that's me or the time, but I feel like now, like sound bowls, or it's first of all, I guess this is a 2-part question. Explain frequency maybe of how that helps when you drum. And also, are we in a changing time right now? Do you feel that, or you've sort of just been on this journey, so it's always been a changing time?
Yeah, that's just a really interesting thing. So yeah, I mean, everything is sound and vibration. And so in shamanic work, the drum itself, that sound and that repetitive, the sound waves that are created by the drum are really what carry you on these journeys into the realms of spirit. And it's really interesting, like during a shamanic healing, often, I'll use drumming and rattling and singing and chanting. And there are, many helping spirits will teach you certain songs that become healing songs that carry their own frequency and their own powers to heal or strengthen a person.
You Are My Sunshine? Is that a song? Or no, it's
it could be. It totally could be.
So you hear you. It's not a set pattern. You're like, you have a vibe. This is what's happening now. I change. I drum. I sing. All that during a healing.
Yes, and I would say in general, shamanic healing is usually, so it's happening at the level of spirit. So which is, spirit is sort of what underpins this reality or everything that's happening here. And typically for a person, we're restoring balance to that spirit. So we're either removing things that don't belong, which is the process of extraction and illumination, or we're putting things back that have been lost or that are needed. So soul retrieval is probably one of the most common things when people come to me, when I go to my helping spirits and say, hey, this is what Karen's asking for. My spirits will often suggest a soul retrieval as part of their healing ceremony. And soul retrieval is this idea that when we're conceived, when the egg and the sperm come together and boom, we're here on earth in our mother's womb. And then anytime after that in our lives, we can lose parts of our soul through traumatic events, big T trauma versus also small T trauma, like things maybe we didn't think were such a big deal. The way we were treated in school in particular, like something like that. Sometimes we give part of our soul away to another person out of love and compassion because we feel they're struggling. There is such a concept of soul stealing, which is sort of, it sounds like a terrible word, but like an example might be a mother who loves her son, and then this guy goes off to college, but she hangs on. She doesn't let him go. She doesn't let him grow up. And so that can happen. Sometimes when people die, they take a part of us and we willingly give it to them. And so sometimes that's how the soul parts come back.
Yeah, it's not a nefarious thing. It's a thing.
It's a thing. And just awareness does a lot for us. Once we know that we're capable of sort of soul stealing, we can ask ourselves, am I hanging on to it like an ex-boyfriend or an ex-partner? Or am I holding too tightly onto my child? Do I need to have a little ceremony to release them and set them free to live their life,
And it's all intention, right?
Yes, absolutely.
I think we
and
forget
awareness.
That. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Awareness, this is, I apologize if I'm all over the map with questions, but that's how I fly by the seat of my pants. It's like when people,
so good.
I used to say to people, my apartment's a mess. Now I apologize. And now I just say my apartment's a mess. That's how And now I've lost my question because I went for the joke.
It's all good.
Yes, it is. Maybe it was a dumb question. There are no dumb questions, right? Okay, I'm gonna hold off and try. Hang on. We tend to think, even in protection, I talk a lot because I do paranormal, which is really kind of the negative side, and I talk a lot about protection. I think that's when we tend to doubt ourselves that intention can actually do something. And I also find, I really started a really great therapy this year. And I find the more I uncover, the more I am aware of my shadow side, the better a reader I am. It's like it kind of unblocks. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. In the shadow, like, I think the best thing that I've learned about that is like, look at it, know it's there. We don't have to stare at it. We're never getting rid of it. But, we all are of the nature to be jealous, filled with rage, angry, whatever it is, vindictive, and it's just trying to escape that's impossible. But we can be aware, and then we can mitigate it by, laughing at it or diffusing it or just saying it out loud. Oh, yep, there it is. I'm jealous. And then finding out, well, what can we do about that?
Yeah, and I always feel like that's a comedian's job is to my job, is to make bigger mistakes than you do, so you can laugh at mine and bring them out into the open. Because I like what you said about let's not stare at it, because there's sort of the dark night of the soul, there's the dark side, and I think sometimes I know I tend to try to overheal, like almost like, oh, I'm passive aggressive, I'm full of rage, and then is there more? Like I've got to find more, and that's probably not healthy, right?
Right. It's like we also have to pay attention to what is good, kind of like the whole idea at the beginning, like hunting for disease. If I focus on everything that's wrong with me, I can't ignore if I've got a pain, but at the same time, I want to mostly focus on, what is going right with me today. I'm feeling pretty energetic. Whatever that is. And the shadow that's just not pleasant work, because I think in our society we're told like be a good little boy and be a good little girl and like never have bad thoughts, and especially in the new age movement or the life coaching movement, it's like love and light and everything's so positive, and it's like we cannot ignore or bypass these things. We kind of have to, and I think comedians are the best. I mean, it's always there's that. I'm sure you've heard of the term the heyoka.
No.
So in the North American native traditions, there is this idea of a sacred clown, or the heyoka, which I believe comes from the Ojibwe language, heyoka. And this is the person that would ride in, like show up at the sacred fire, like naked or take off all their clothes and start saying outrageous things about people in the community. And just like
that's
blow
my
the
whole
lid.
Act. That's my whole act.
And blow the lid off everybody's secrets and like say it out loud and like horrify people, because they were like, oh my God, I can't believe they're doing this, But then it was so healing, because often, we get so serious or we get so thinking we're so high and mighty and we're so perfect. And then to have somebody basically out us for whatever nasty behavior, And so their job was sort of to restore balance by, popping the balloon of the false reality that, we fancy ourselves to be dwelling in or living in. So that's why I've always thought of, comedians as, these sacred kind of truth tellers that like, it's uncomfortable. My sister's a comedian, and oh my God, there's been times she's done material on me and I'm like, oh God, it's just so cringy. But then, and, of course, it's always caricatures, right? It's not all fully us, but there are parts of it when it's really cringy that are true. And then it's like, well, I need to look at that.
Yes. And your sister is Maria Bamford. So everybody just gasps, oh my God, it's Maria Bamford. We're all gasping because she's so fantastic and phenomenal. And the example of just putting it all out there.
Totes, putting it all out there and being that heyoka, like, oh my gosh, like just last week she shared something about my mother, like my mom had just died, and with hours, my dad brought out a box of I'm not even going to tell the joke, but anyways, it was just so heyoka. It's beyond me. And being the oldest child, my job is to protect and honor the elders, right? And then Maria's the heyoka, so she's there to like lift, blow the lid off things and be like, yeah, we're not gonna
pretend that's not there.
That's right. And there's such a beauty in that.
And I'm sure with the sacred clown, obviously we are so suppressed, that naked would be like, oh my God. But to them, that was probably the thing. Like that guy wasn't judging and pointing at you or girl. I hope they had female sacred clowns. It was the point of that person is also naked.
Yes. And it wasn't, I don't think it was personal as much as it was just the act of like, just setting things right, just being a pot stirrer and kind of like, yeah.
Right.
And entertaining. Like they would ride in backwards. There was a story that I read, like they rode in backwards on horses. So they would ride in, like they would do things absurd. Like nobody rides a horse backwards, but that's what they would do.
So obviously it's not quite, South Park is a little meaner than the sacred clown would have been, is what I guess.
I don't know.
That's true. It's funny how, I have this theory. First of all, one of my theories is that eventually we're all going to be naked on the internet anyways. So if you've been in a bathroom in a Chevron, anywhere in the country, somewhere there's a camera and we're all going to be there. So let's all just deal with it. But there is this, our country loves, or I guess society loves shame. And I think shame is the thing. I always love this story about Roseanne Barr when she first came up and the tabloids were all over her, and she was they pulled up her history of being in a mental hospital, and somebody like an inquirer came at her and was like, you were in a mental hospital. And she was like, yeah, so what? What's your problem? I was in a mental hospital. And she took all the energy out of it by being okay with it.
Yeah. So beautiful.
And that's all we can do is be okay with stuff, right?
Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, exactly. And not have any, I guess that just brings up to mind, like, not arguing, not engaging. It's kind of like, yeah, when people want to start something, we don't have to engage.
Yes. And that's a weird, and literally I am asking this sort of basic question for me because last week I got ripped off by a refrigerator repairman, went into rage and then yelling, and I had an enemy. I wish I had been a walrus, but I felt these people were my enemy. So when you feel that, when you sort of, I kind of always feel like I'm going back to primitive Karen that was, feels trapped and can't get out, and someone did something bad and I'm a victim. What do you have a way like that, just sort of, how do you chill out, or do you walk away, or do you stalk them on the internet like I did? What do you do?
Well, I mean, there's so many different approaches to that. I mean, lately I really love the 12-step approach, which is like, I cannot afford to argue with anyone. Zero. Like I can't, that's impossible to ask yourself not to argue with anybody, but it's a thing to try on a daily basis, because it's these resentments and these, getting angry that, or, just being actively angry with people that really take us out. But often what I will do if I'm in that situation is if I'm really, really mad about something, I usually try to track back and find out what is it I'm like really afraid of, or what is it that's really sad. Usually anger is, the old saying, like, anger is not a primary emotion. Beneath it is always fear or grief or sadness, And sometimes it's just like there's this little scared kid inside me that, like, is terrified I'm going to be rejected or kicked out, of the family or the friend group or whatever it is. So, taking that time, I mean, taking a little walk in nature I'll often just go for a walk and ask, like, what do I need to learn? Show me what I need to learn, and ask just the woods, the land, to show me. And it's incredible, the beasties will show up, or maybe I'll see a dead tree that's fallen over and is just in complete surrender. You know what I mean? just reminding me like there's nothing to fight here. Just, like what would I do if I just surrendered to it and let it be what it is, The
Wow.
repairman tried to take my money or whatever happened. You know what I mean? Like just evaluating as a factual experience.
And in the great span of life, will I even remember these guys? Although I did report them to the LA district attorney. So they ended up being a scam company. So,
okay.
Which then made me even madder because then I was like, you shouldn't get scammed. And then, of course, someone on Facebook said, didn't you see it coming as a psychic? Which then threw me deeper down the rabbit hole.
Oh,
but
God, more shame.
But I'm not
You
fighting
should have
with
known.
them. I know, I hate that. Like it's on all the time. Okay, folks, we're going to take a break and then we're going to look at some of the courses that you offer and everyone's going to sign up for your email list. Followyourfeelgood.com. Hang on, folks. We'll be right back with Sarah Seidelman.
Psychic teas, spelled with a Z, are scrumptious herbal combinations with antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties. Without sugar or caffeine, psychic teas won't mess with any medications and are designed by a naturopathic doctor. Many testify to positive results. Detox chakras and psychic tea blends enable bodily functions with superior efficacy, while more love and champagne blends support awareness of subtle joy and bliss. The CBD's teas are magical with myriad healing effects. There are 20 servings per package. A little dab'll do ya, and you can drink it hot or cold. Psychic teas taste so good. Replace coffee, use as a bedtime ritual, or even flavor a meal or dessert. The people behind the product are righteous and kind. Psychic teas will blow your mind. Totally worth the investment. PsychicTeas.com.
Okay, we're back. So first of all, I love, and you said in this last bit, you were talking, this is getting to be two things that I really like, is that the love and light is out. Like just that phrase or all of that is out, that we're all things. Authentic self is all things and none of them are perfect. Sometimes I do a tarot card of the day on Facebook and I try to keep positive words. And then sometimes I'm like, we'll use some negative. You have Life Pirate Academy, which I love the word pirate. I think I had a scary pirate ghost in my apartment once, just for a minute. And I actually, on one of my podcasts of predictions, I was like, I think pirates are coming back. So maybe it's these good life pirates. What is that? Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's a digital course where it's sort of like you can binge watch it and do it all in a weekend, or you can do it, one section at a time. But it's me sort of imparting my most important sort of tips for if you want to find work that feels really good. And, if you long to love what you do and how you do it, this is my course. And it sort of has a bit of a salty, twist. And it's sort of, pirates. A lot of people are like, oh my God, pirates are evil. They actually hurt people. And I'm like, what I mean is like that spirit of sort of the Johnny Depp, who is this sort of benevolent sort of, wreck of a person who's, getting epic shit done, but is not like, is doing it in sort of a rakish and loving manner. Mm-hmm. And so it's sort of a lot of humor and a lot of self-examination and a lot of, just helping you to reconnect with that inner core of yourself who is clear, confident, unafraid, and quite life piratey, ready to get out and sail, take the ship and sail it out of the port, like whatever's that Louisa May Alcott, my ship was not made for staying around here. Like it was meant to sail the seven seas, people.
I love that.
And it's scary. So this little digital course is and I think it's on sale now for like 50% off or something like that. So it's good timing to mention it.
Oh, great. And you know what else? Pirate is again one of those words that like that to me rings of freedom. That know, and freedom is a big 2021 is a numerological year 5, and it's about change and freedom. And what does freedom mean to you? And this is why also I feel like it's so timely is I think, again, maybe it's my life, but people seem to be very aware of what they think they're responsible for, and 2, who they think they're responsible to, and even stuff, like I keep talking about stuff. So freedom and just being that, like, be the pirate that jumps on the ship and maybe, steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Not necessarily, but it's not a bad word. There are no bad words.
Yeah. And I think freedom is it. Like, how can we connect with that, going back to that word frequency, like, what is your frequency and what would it look like to live your life purely expressing your frequency? Like, do you get an image? Do you get a feeling? Do you get a sound? What does it look like? And when you express yourself from that frequency, it's like, we can't wait. I mean, we are dying. We are so thirsty for that. Like, we're wanting us all to come into our own frequency and express it, because that's when things can get really interesting, really beautiful, really entertaining, really wow.
Yeah, unique. It's funny that it just occurred to me, because once I get started on something, it's very hard. I try to take on things I'm not good at, because sometimes my own worst enemy is me, in that if I can't be good at it, why am I doing it? And that's not a fair statement.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, I don't go out looking for things that are going to be hard, but most of the things I want to do have a hard element.
Well, I like to surrender into, just do it then. If you're not competing, just do it. Just try it. Like, that's why I'm so fascinated with art, is you can't say it's good or bad.
Yes, I've been doing a deep dive into art this year myself, and my favorite teacher, oh my gosh, it was so powerful. We took this weekend class, right? We're all painting these huge paintings in this room. Do you know what the rule was, Karen?
What?
Nobody could mention anything about anybody's paintings.
Ooh.
And so it was so spectacular. It was so freeing, because you know how if you were 6 other people and they're painting all these amazing paintings, I mean, you'd feel like required to go, oh, Karen, I love what you're doing there. What is that giraffe?
Yes.
You'd expend all this energy sort of, making sure you socially attended all these people. Right.
Right.
But it was so freeing. And also, because it's not so great to know what people like about our paintings, and it's not so great to know what they don't like. It's actually just radical acceptance of whatever it is without liking it or disliking it. That's so powerful. And I've started incorporating that in my classes. And oh my gosh, the first one I did just a month ago, it was style and fashion. And which sounds weird for a shamanic practitioner, but hey, that's what we did. Everybody posted selfies every day of the outfit that they had put together. And the rule was no comments. Only the person who sent the picture could reflect on their own feeling about what they were wearing.
Yeah, as someone with many YouTube videos up, no comments is always a good thing.
Yeah.
You can't do that in comedy. That's a real interesting. In fact, it's funny because I did a dry bar special and it went viral. It was great. It's been a pinnacle in my career, but I did it at a time when I really didn't care. And I let my hair go gray and I wasn't taking care of myself. And I was kind of in one of these stages of, if somebody's going to love me, they're going to love me like this, not with my makeup on. And now, not that this is the key, but there has become a change in my avatar, in my person, and putting on makeup, dressing up has become my art form. And like I said, I mean,
love it.
But it's a way of showing up for the world.
Yeah, putting your frequency out there.
Yeah, all these things I thought sort of wouldn't fit into the spiritual life. It's like even somebody that is sometimes somebody that's being sloppy like me was doing it for the same reason I might dress up. This is what I want to show you about myself.
Yeah.
So outward, but I think I've always said artists are the 3D printers of the future, but for some reason it feels like in this time of COVID where, whatever, you're supposed to be worried about money and jobs, art has become even more important.
I just feel like it is, that's what we're here to do, is make things or express ourselves, in any way we can.
Right.
And it's so awesome and it's terrifying. And most of us aren't doing it because we're so afraid of what everybody's going to think if we do.
Right.
Or we're afraid people won't care if we do. And they might not, but you'll find so much joy if you just do it for yourself.
Yes, and spread that to other. Okay, and then you create your feel good morning routine.
Yes. Oh, that class, I need to teach that again and again, because I think, having a little stack of habits in the morning is absolutely life altering. Most of us think, we need to go take 6 months off to create our master work and write our novel and quit our job and all this and that. But it's really the power that class teaches, the power of 5 minutes a day of something, and how that can add up and become a body of work and really bring us into higher integrity with ourselves. And it sounds sort of boring, but it's the most exciting thing I've discovered in the last 5 years. I mean, I just get pumped talking about morning routines. So
I love that.
Yeah. That and 100-day projects, those get me going too, because that's just something so small and tiny that you can do every day for 100 days. And when you look back and if you complete it, you will be like astonished at what you made.
That's I'm a very I probably something I should tone down a little. Like when I did ayahuasca once, they kept going, throw away your to-do list. It's too big. It's too you're too married to it. But in a way, now that it's very small, it's the greatest thing ever, because I said at 5 o'clock you're done. You do not even look at the list after 5, and that is for some reason mine. I think because there's 78 tarot cards, 78's my number. But I was just thinking, if I learn one thing about astrology every day, in 78 days, I'll know 78 things I didn't know. So yeah, I love that. And 5 minutes, anybody can do 5 minutes.
Yes, exactly. And our ego won't get all hacked off and like, I'm not doing that. It'll let you do something for 5 minutes, most likely.
Meditate, folks. Even meditate for 5 minutes.
Yes. And it'll restore your faith in yourself, which is, I think, what most of us have lost along the way, because we've been beaten down by the challenges of life.
Exactly. And so then the next one is Get Sourced, which is a guided introduction to shamanic journey.
Yeah, so that's for those of you who are listening and you're like, yeah, I'd like to get a core beastie. Yeah, I'd like to go on a journey. I want to talk to the walruses. Like, that's a great course. It's about 2 hours and there's a group. So you kind of get to go on a couple guided drum journeys with me, and then you'll get your own experiences and also get to see what other people experienced on their journeys. So It's a great primer for this world of shamanism and shamanic work.
And once they get it, can they watch it a bunch of times?
Heck yes.
All right, perfect. Because that's what I did with my tarot class. I was like, it's yours for life. Although I had to change passwords about 10 times because people stole it. But basically, I want you to have it for life. Hero's Journey Facilitators Kit. What is that?
Oh, that's for people who are like, maybe you're a freshly hatched life coach, or you're somebody who's like a yoga instructor and you want to like take people on transformational retreats, like an evening of it, a weekend of it, or maybe travel retreats. This is kind of like almost like, remember those how to host a murder party kits in the 80s and 90s? This is like how to host a transformational retreat. It gives you the script, all the materials, all the lists, and it's just so you don't have to worry about how long is this going to take. It all spells it all out. And I give like a 2-hour retreat and then a weekend retreat, and yeah, you can sort of just all the instructions on how to do that. And then you can, of course, make it your own, which a lot of the people have. And that's been really fun for me to see. We have a group on Facebook, so you can also join and kind of share in how you're going to do it.
Yes. And I love that we've gone from murder to soul retrieval. That's
yes. We're going the right way, people.
That's good. Born to Freak. I just pulled it up. I love the name, first of all.
A salty primer for irrepressible humans. Yes, this is a love letter that I wrote to all the people who have received a diagnosis like myself in the DSM-5. We must be on the DSM-12 by now, but ADHD, depression, bipolar, Asperger's. If you're on the spectrum somewhere in there, this book is for you. And it's a lot of funny stories from my own life and some tips and sort of concepts that I have found just really helpful to help you really embrace all that you are and see it as a gift so that you can share it.
Now, I have a weird question. Since it's a spectrum, aren't we all kind of on it somewhere?
I mean, personally, between you and I think we're all born to freak, which means, we've come here to restore balance to the world by expressing all of our strangeness. But maybe not everybody relates to that. But I do think that we're all in this, but yeah, we all have elements of bipolar and ADHD. And, of course, clinically, they have all these criteria and all these, rigid rules about it. And we'll all, we're all degrees of everything.
Yeah.
I fully agree.
I get very afraid when labels come up, because once someone gets that label, they start living their life through it.
It's true. I mean, for me, getting the label of ADHD was really kind of freeing in a way, because it finally helped me to understand, oh, that's why people act the way they do around me, or that's why people get upset with me, because I can be a little cut to the chasey, and people don't always like that. They might want to process, things like that. It just helped me to understand myself. But I agree, like, labels can be really confining, but sometimes it helps to just, to sort of recognize where, how others might experience us.
I think I like the label and transitioning or helping. It's like, I get very, very stuck on this. A couple of people I know that had near death or astral experiences were saying how, they would always come back with that we've misdiagnosed schizophrenia, that it's not a disease, it's people seeing through dimensions. And I heard it in 2 or 3 different places. And I know somebody talked about how Native Americans, I think, used to have a way to, like, they would teach that person to focus in on this dimension. So it was almost like, it was not a freak thing, it was like an honorable thing. And I always find that interesting. As for, we quickly put a label on it and was like, these people have to go.
Right.
But it really, I think the more we get to healing and our roots and stuff, we find, well, I guess if you go back too far, they thought if you had a seizure, you were possessed, which we don't want to go back that far, but you know what I mean?
Well, in many cultures, those who had seizures were people, they believed that when they were seizing, they were actually in the spirit realms, and that many of those people became shamans in their own cultures.
Oh, great. Someone did it, right?
Yeah, there was something that really transformed the way that I read, basically something, there's a shaman, Malidoma Some, who he wrote basically that in his village in, I believe he was Namibia. I think I have the African country wrong, but anyway, a psychotic break would be viewed as an opportunity or an initiation for a person. And that if the village circled the wagons around that person with love and they wanted to be well, there was a potential there for them to become a healer, to have a gift that they could share with the community. And I remember thinking, wow, that is not how we view our people who get a psychotic break. We're like, you are a problem, and we pray to God you don't keep having this problem, because we don't want this.
Yes, I know. If people start gathering around me, I worry there's an intervention coming, and that's usually not very helpful. It's even the whole fact that grouping surrounds around love, because I, like I said, maybe it's my journey, but I have had a couple of, I have a great life. Like, I don't have a lot of bumps, and my bumps are probably first world problems. But I've noticed when I do hit one, there's like an upgrade on the other side. There's always an upgrade.
Yeah.
And
totally.
That's what I shoot for now. So I go, my refrigerator is going to work better now. I went through that with those guys or something, So when people come to you and they might say something like that, like, I just found out I had ADHD, or I'm bipolar. Is it a process of helping them understand, or I don't want to use the word control, or channel that power? Like, can you help them with that?
Yeah, I mean, depending on what's going on with them, one of the things I might do is help them to connect with their own helping spirits, because then they'll begin to, get their own, the unique and really special kind of support they need to help them on their path. I also might help them practically develop, if somebody's been diagnosed bipolar, obviously maybe they're under the care of a physician as well. But I might help them to develop, like, let's develop a kind of a council of elders for you, so that, when, you have a great new idea or something crazy and you want to make a big decision like that, you have some people to go to that you can trust, to sort of act as as like your counsel, I mean, we can all benefit from that, not just people who have bipolar, but in particular, if we're prone to, possibly getting into delusionary states, right? It's nice to have some people around that we can check ideas with and things like that.
I love that, building a council.
Yeah, but I think, by and large, a lot of us get these labels, but really, I view the vast majority of the people I've seen, it's just this initiatory experience that they're going through, and that they are going to receive a gift if they're open to following this thing. And like, as you said, that their whole life is about to be upgraded if they can just stay open and surrendered to what wants to happen next, what they need, reaching out for help. And this isn't to say that, bipolar isn't a very serious illness, or that, people can, absolutely. But in my personal practice, that's kind of how I've seen it. And just no matter what, or people have gotten a terrible diagnosis, or their husbands dumped them for a 17-year-old, or, whatever, any number of things. It's like, it sounds terrible, but things are about to get really good because you're looking at this, and I can see you want to navigate it and you want to step through it. And with support, things are going to be really great.
Right. And yes, I do not mean to lessen anyone that has bipolar or thing. I just always feel like sometimes someone will get that diagnosis, be handed pills, and it's done. And it's kind of, there's so much more. And I'm probably bipolar, but I'm in denial right now. I have to get a session with Sarah and pull that out. I'll get the refrigerator repairment session. I see you have that. So great talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
The website is followyourfeelgood.com. It's going to be in the show notes. Sarah, anything you want to tell people about what's coming up? It looks like there's a retreat maybe, or where they book an appointment at your website. Anything you want to tell the folks where they can find you?
Yes. Come work with me. You can have a divination, a shorter session, or we could do a session of shamanic healing. And I just want to say to people, you are ready and able to do awesome and amazing things. And sometimes we just need that support. And
Awesome. Yes. Oh, and is there go to your website and sign up for the email, especially because it looks like you might have something coming up in Peru. All
that's full, but yes, we're going to Peru, and we may go again in October. So we'll see. But yes, if you sign up for the newsletter, you'll find out all the scoop on what's happening.
See, I may have to go on one of those because I immediately felt fear. And then I felt relief when you said it was full. So I was like, I got to go on one of these. Phew! Everyone covered me from finding my real self. Thank you, Sarah Seidelman. Followyourfeelgood.com. Everyone, I hope next month you're going to see me in Cape Cod, where I am working for 3 months doing a show. Although everything keeps changing minute to minute, check my website. Also, thank to Mike Flynn at Uno Rising Media. And everybody have a great day. Make an appointment. Feel good. Find your beastie. All that. Bye, everybody.